Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Oner podcast, the podcast where we review and break down films all in one big, long, unbroken take. I'm Austin Archer, and with me, as always, is my childhood next-door neighbor and lifelong best friend,
Kramer, England.
Okay, I'm wearing this hat because of the movie we're talking about.
That's a good one.
Listen, I have a lot of these hats because of the Republican character that I play on my social media, and I buy these hats at like Mavericks when I'm on the road, and I have a collection of these. But I just want people to know that this is not my actual. This is a character that I play, and this is. But I have the military hat.
Nice.
We are talking about The Long Walk, new movie that's in. I think it's still lingering in theaters.
Oh yeah. It only came out like 3 or 4 weeks ago, I think 4 maybe. But yeah.
We've already done our spoiler-free version of this on the channel. Kramer did it by himself because I wasn't feeling great last week. And so check that out if you want the spoiler-free edition. But we're going to be talking spoilers in this episode. So if that's a problem for you, go watch the other one. It's linked in the description. Go check that out for the spoiler-free. But this one is spoiler time.
Yes.
As you said in your spoiler-free review, you liked this movie, yeah?
I did. I liked it a lot. It was very, very well done. And it is it was very emotional, and every part that they wanted to have affect me, it really affected me. And it was sad. It was scary. It was very, very jarring. But yeah, I really enjoyed this film. Did you like it? What are your thoughts?
Very effective, very simple concept and simple, and sometimes something like that can actually be really difficult to pull off, where it's just it's just characters talking and moments that need to land in a specific way. I would say if this film has any weakness, it would be the screenplay by JT Molnar. I think sometimes is a little I don't know what the word is. It's a little simple. It's a little pedestrian in the themes that it's trying to deliver. It's a little just sort of direct, characters just sort of say very directly the thing that they're trying to convey. Right. And what makes the movie work, in my opinion, is the performances. I think the actors do a good job with the dialogue. And I think that overall, the moments that need to hit. Yes. And like you said, it is very emotional. And so when the movie wants you to feel a certain way about an event that's happening, you feel it. And but I was thinking about that. I think for a movie that's so dialogue heavy and it's just characters having conversations, I could have done with a little bit more. I don't know. And maybe it's just because I've been watching so much Paul Thomas Anderson recently, but something a little bit more poetic. I don't know, something a little more subtle. I don't know.
Well, and when we get to the end, I totally know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
There were some things that I was like, you could kind of put, it was almost a little, it's not on the nose, but it was a little too direct. And it's like, you could leave some of this up to interpretation a little bit more. But then it was kind of just kind of stuck to the point, and it didn't leave as much open to interpretation or anything like that. So it was kind of, and like I said, the ending, I'm still wondering if it could have been different and maybe a little bit better.
Yeah, I wonder about that too. And I, but again, the cast is doing a really nice job here. I think that the thing looks good. It's as simple of a concept as it is, it's mostly quite well executed. And again, I felt the emotions I'm supposed to feel when I was supposed to feel them for the most part. And I think it really is we're going to be talking about One Battle After Another tomorrow night. And I've been watching just a lot of Paul Thomas Anderson lately, and I'm always just amazed at how he's able to convey so much of what a character is feeling, or so much of what something about the human experience with one line that is so simple, yet and I just think, I don't know, it's a skill that very few writers have. And I can't really fault JT Molnar for that, because the script works, it does what it needs to do. But anyway, let's get right into it. So we know the premise for this movie. You talked about it in the in the spoiler free, but it's just we start the movie off, and I think there's it's a letter that is informing our
Right.
main character that he's been selected in the lottery for the long walk.
Yeah.
And so he's due to report at this location at,
Yeah.
0600 hours or whatever it is on such and such date. And he shows up. His mom, played by Judy Greer, is dropping him off, and our main character, played by Cooper Hoffman, is being dropped off to start the long walk. And
Yeah.
I did kind of like how, just in case you didn't see any trailers for this, or you went into the
Yeah.
movie blind, I like that they decide to not fully tell the audience what exactly the walk fully is or
Yeah.
entails.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely like a very like YA novel, premise, and maybe the original, as you said in the
Yeah.
spoiler free, of this concept of like the Hunger Games, or
Right.
uh Allegiant, or
Yeah, yeah, it does seem to be kind of the OG one or something. I mean, maybe there was something before that, but yeah, kind of everybody's and like I said, the thing I like about this one is they're pitted against each other, but they're not trying to hurt each other. And I think that's what I got. Like in the Hunger Games, they're trying to kill each other.
yeah,
Whereas this, they're trying to just like they get killed, but they're trying. And I love the theme of like the brotherhood that they develop because of this,
yeah.
and I thought that was pretty strong from the start. Um, and like I just thought it was a way to make this movie more interesting.
Yeah, the movie's paced quite well. I mean, we get right into it, right? Judy Greer drops her son off, and we can
Yeah,
tell this is a very emotional
yeah,
goodbye. Because I mean, like, it's a 1 in 50 shot that her
hmm,
son's gonna survive this thing. And those aren't great odds, you know?
no,
There's 50 young men who are going to go on the long walk, and one of them is going to be standing at the end.
hmm,
And her son's not like in the best shape, you know?
no, no,
Yeah, I mean, not to say anything about Cooper
no,
Hoffman's not like in terrible shape, but
no,
I mean, that's the thing, that at the very beginning of this movie, we get introduced to a lot of the characters. Obviously, there's not really time in the film for us to
yeah,
get to know all 50 of the young men
hmm,
super well. Um, there's some we get to know better than others, but pretty early on, we get a look at like this one kind of blonde guy who looks like he's the fittest of the boys.
yeah,
And there's something that they do with him later on that I want to that I didn't really
okay,
I didn't like the twist with him. I thought
yeah,
he was
yeah,
gonna
yeah,
I thought he was saying it was something else, and then I thought it could have been more interesting. Um, but yeah, he's kind of like everyone's biggest competition. But they're all sort of like preparing their backpacks and tying their shoes and making sure that they're ready to go. And
yeah,
Mark Wahlberg shows up as the major.
yeah.
And
Mark Hamill.
Mark Hamill.
I was gonna say, whoa, what movie were you watching?
Can you imagine if it was Mark Wahlberg?
That would be a very different movie.
All
Yes.
right, let's go.
Say hi to your mom for me.
Gonna do the long walk. All
Yeah.
right. Hey, don't eyeball me,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
Don't look at me like that.
The funny thing is he would probably actually be a pretty interesting major.
Yeah. Yeah.
He would cuz I mean I think about him in The Departed and how good of a character he was when he's just like mad all the time and like
Yeah.
really assertive. I think you'd have to do it differently for him. But yeah, it would be a very very different movie with Mark
Yeah.
Wahlberg, that's for sure.
I like it being an old guy, an old crotchety
I think it needs to be
guy.
an old guy, yeah.
And,
Yeah.
like, speaking of The Departed, like, Alec Baldwin could have done this too,
Oh,
so
yeah, he would have been interesting.
yeah,
And like I said in
Mm.
the spoiler free, I really like Mark Hamill. I think he did a really good job. But I do wonder if someone else, like Alec Baldwin, could have brought something a little bit more to it.
Well, the movie we're gonna talk about tomorrow night, One Battle After Another, has a very similar character done by Sean Penn, and I think Sean Penn's performance is likely to get him nominated for a Best Supporting Actor
That yeah,
award,
pretty
because
crazy.
Sean Penn's awesome in
He's
that movie.
he was
Yeah.
very yeah, you love to hate him, and he did a great job.
And
But yeah,
he could basically be the exact same guy in this
yeah,
movie as the
he could.
Major, and it
Yeah.
would work.
Uh-huh.
With the same name too. Yeah,
Exactly. They
yeah,
yep, it really that it, so anyway, but
yeah.
I mean, what did you think of Mark Hamill? Do you
I like Mark Hamill in this. I think like, here's my thing.
yeah.
I think a lot of people just have a really nostalgic connection to Mark Hamill
Yeah.
for the very obvious reasons. And I think he had such a like disappearance from Hollywood for so long
Yeah,
that I
yeah,
think we always just get happy when we see him in anything. Whenever, at least I do, whenever he pops up in anything, I'm like, oh,
right.
good, Mark Hamill's here.
Yeah.
Like it's just, it's like I just feel like I feel bad in a way for actors like Mark Hamill and
Mhm.
Carrie Fisher, and like Harrison Ford is kind of the only one who made it out of those
Yeah,
movies and was
yeah,
able to have a career beyond that and was able to create several other iconic characters. But those actors have just sort of, I mean, they spent the rest of their lives in the shadows of those characters.
yeah.
So anytime I saw them get to have an opportunity to do something else, I'd be excited. All that being said, it's not like he's bad in the film.
Yes, I agree.
It's just like I don't know. It's
Yeah.
just that the whole movie I'm kind of going like it's Mark Hamill.
Mhm.
it's,
Yeah,
it's Mark Hamill doing like a gruff voice and being
yeah,
like, "Hey,"
yeah,
you
yep.
know.
So we
I don't.
feel the exact same. Yep,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
But I mean, he did, like you said, he didn't do a bad job. He was good.
yeah.
He's good in this movie, and he's a presence the entire movie, whether he's there or not. So
Yeah, David Johnson is very good in this movie. We
yeah,
meet him early on. All the boys are just sort of getting to know each other early on, kind of feeling each other out. Like, who's my biggest competition? Who's a person who maybe I could be friends with and talk to while we're on
mhm,
this walk? Um, I will say this about David Johnson's performance: he's getting a lot of well-deserved praise. He's a
yes,
very charismatic and watchable actor. I will say, my ear sometimes just there's certain British English actors that like I just don't feel like they're quite pulling off the swing that like
right,
I
right,
I
right.
recently started, I mean, a few years ago I watched The Wire for the first time, and I
Oh
just
yeah,
don't feel like Idris Elba ever quite fully pulls off the Baltimore accent the way that he
yeah,
wants to and the way that the show needs him to, and I'm constantly just going like I can just hear Idris Elba's like British accent underneath this character all the time. And I
yeah,
just have to sort
yeah,
of like try to not pay attention to it and try
right.
to not, and I can also hear it with the other lead of The Wire, Dominic, whatever, or who,
Oh yeah,
not
uh,
Dominic West, but what's his,
oh, I
I
know who
can't,
you're talking about. Yeah,
he's the guy from like the Forgotten or
yeah,
um,
yeah.
yeah, I can't remember what
I
his name
forgot
is
what
right now.
his name is too. Yeah,
But there's a little bit of that going on with David Johnson's things because I also think like English accent to Southern accent is a really
yeah,
tough transition because there's still like soft R's in an American Southern accent.
yeah,
And there's so him going from an English accent to an American Southern accent, sometimes the accent's a little hard for my ear to
yeah.
pick up on things that he was saying. I was kind of like, I don't know, he's living in between these two accents that are weirdly similar, but specifically different. And it's
Mhm.
making some of what he's saying a little bit hard for me to grab. But
Yeah,
but he's still a very magnetic presence.
yeah, yeah. I caught that a few times. I was like, oh, that's a little much. It's a little much, but I he's way better than some Americans who try to do British accents.
Oh,
So,
sure.
like, I was able to forgive him for it. But yeah, he's a great. I mean, immediately, him and Ray, who's the main character played by Cooper Hoffman, they meet immediately. He leaves Judy Greer, who is amazing in this movie,
Hmm.
in like 3 scenes,
Uh-huh.
and he meets David Johnson, and they so like immediately they're there. And I was kind of suspicious of David Johnson most of the time because I mean they are pitted against each other. So I was kind of like, oh, is this guy for real or is he just trying like a tactic to kind
Yeah.
of like help himself? And I think the movie wanted you to think that. And
Well, this is another thing about like the screenplay from JT Molnar is I
yeah,
think that he could have done more with some of these other characters
yeah,
in
I
like
agree.
having people plot against. I just felt like there would be things that would be set up and then and
Yes.
mostly I would just say the tone of this movie is just like sad. It's just
Yeah,
bleak.
it
It's
is.
just
Yeah.
sort of you talked about in the spoiler-free review of this movie being a metaphor for war,
Right.
which I definitely think it is. But I really came away from it going like, I think The Long Walk is a metaphor for life.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that it's just sort of this unforgiving thing that's like there is no finish line and you just walk until you're not walking anymore. And
Yeah.
some people get out really early and it's not fair. and it's not, and some people take themselves out, and some,
Yeah.
but like another thing that happens in life is some people take each other out and
Yeah.
take, and I just kind of thought, I felt like they could have brought some of that in there. They set some pieces up and then wound, like, particularly the character Markovich, who they sort of set up as the villain of
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
walking group. And then his story, the end of his arc, and I don't necessarily have a problem with this, but the end of his arc is that he's just like, he just kind of gets really softened by the walk and just like really sad that nobody likes him,
Yeah.
and and takes himself out in a really brutal and
Yeah.
sad way, you
Yeah.
know?
I mean, well, yeah, he stabs himself with a spoon
Right.
in which I agree though. I was like, okay, this Barkovich character really needs to,
Barkovich, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
he really needs to, like, he said like, "Oh, I've got something for you." He says
Right.
that to Ray, and I was like, "Oh, this is really interesting. What is it that he's doing? What is his plan?" Because he takes out pretty early on. He's talking to another character, and he's talking about his mom in a very vulgar way,
Mhm.
and the character tries to hit him, and he moves out of the way, and he falls, and I was like, "Well, that's a part of his plan," but it did seem to affect him really, really
Yeah,
deep.
almost immediately, he was like, "I didn't mean to do that." But I was
Yeah,
like, "Oh, I think it would maybe be more interesting if he did, because it
yeah,
felt like he did." But also there's something but I'm also interested and compelled by this idea of, like,
yeah,
the way that people sometimes are their own worst enemies, that they'll posture as being, like, really tough and, like, "I don't care,
yeah,
and
yeah,
I'm not," but, and it's a defense mechanism, and once more and more people are dying around him and he's sort of softened by
yeah,
the brutality of the walk, he's just like, "Can I just be friends with you guys for the last, little while that I'm here? Would you guys please just, like, be cool with me? Like, I didn't mean to kill that kid. I didn't,"
yeah, yeah,
and it's sort of like, or thinking about people who, like, go to prison for murder or something like that and get
yeah,
softened in prison by, like, the reality of the consequences of their actions,
yeah,
and just want people to, like, see them as human after that. And it's just like,
right.
I know I did a bad thing, but it would really mean a lot to me if you could see me as more than just a person who did this
Yeah,
bad thing,
and
you know?
I agree with you. I do like that. I wish that it was a little bit, I wish he was changed a little bit because he was put forth as the antagonist and the one who is scheming to do all that. So like you can still have him be his own worst enemy, but I think they went a little too hard because that made me think the whole time, well, this is all a part of his plan.
Well, and
So
this is again the screenplay thing where I'm
yeah,
like, I
yeah,
think that if the direction you wanna go with this character is, it's a red herring to think of him as a villain. He's just a
yes,
scared kid who was acting like
yes,
an idiot. He's just a scared, insecure kid. Then I think you need to do more with his arc before he dies to
yeah,
sort of I think you need to convert us into people who feel bad for him.
yes,
But by the time, that we're actually like, this kid's really trying to
yeah,
make amends,
yeah.
and yeah.
Yeah, and I agree. I think they could have done it differently,
Yeah.
to make us think he's not. It's not all a part of his plan because when he did kill himself, and when he did that to himself, I was like, okay, I didn't know how to feel about it. I didn't
Right.
feel as bad for him as I could have.
Well, at that point in the movie, we've watched so many of these kids die, and
Yeah,
we're very clearly just rooting for Ray and Pete
yeah,
at that
uh-huh.
point, and we're just sort of like, well, okay, I guess that's one more down, and Berkovich
Yep,
was a jerk anyway, so
yeah, yeah,
and I feel like it is sad, like the movie is just heavy, but
yeah,
yeah, so I mean, going back, like all these kids
yeah,
are getting ready for the walk. They're meeting each other. They're making connections. Some people are cold with each other, and some people are kind of making
yeah,
like fast friends. There is this funny kid that I wondered if they did this intentionally, because there was something about the design of this one character. I can't remember his name. Was it Tony, or
Which
who?
one is he? The one who wants to write a book?
No, he's
Oh,
the one who's got a wife. And
oh yeah, 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 yeah. His name is Hank Olson.
there was something about like, maybe this is me just being a little bit racist, but he just reminded me of Ki Hui Kwan in, like,
Oh, yeah, yeah,
as
I
Short
got
Round, or as the kid from The Goonies, because this
yeah,
is sort of a period piece and it feels like it's set in, like, an alternate
yeah,
1960s or
yeah,
1970s. The way this kid was dressed and, like, his hat, he just felt like that character
I
kind
could
of,
see that, yeah,
but like
yeah,
a more grown up version of that character, like a more
yeah,
Like if the character
If
from
Data.
if
Yeah.
Data grew up and was, like 19 or 20 years old.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
yeah. Um, but I like this character a lot.
Yeah.
I think he's really funny and adds a lot of like much needed levity to the movie.
Yeah.
One of the characters that they meet right off the bat is a kid who looks like he's maybe 15. And I think there is a
Yeah.
requirement that you need to be 18 to be in the long walk, kind of like military service. And they're
Mhm.
like, "How old are you, kid?"
Yeah.
And he's like, 18. And they're like, "Come on." And
Yeah.
he's like,
Yeah.
"Okay, I'm 17." But like, and they're like, "All right, whatever,
Yeah.
Uh,
Well,
yeah,
and that's the kid from Jojo Rabbit,
that's
which
right.
I was yeah, he's the first one. You could tell like, and you immediately are like, oh man, like this is
Yeah.
not going to end well for this kid.
Yeah, but the major shows up and he explains the rules to all the kids, and he basically just says, like, this is the long walk. You guys know what it is. It's a
Mm.
nationwide lottery that basically, like, it's an alternate America that had a kind of economic collapse
Right.
after maybe World War II.
Yeah.
And instead of the boom that America experienced, they had a massive collapse. And to stimulate the economy every year, they have this lottery where one kid from every state goes and participates in the long walk, and it's supposed to be this big event that kind of encourages people to get back to work and to work hard.
Yeah.
And he explains to them the rules, which is you all have a sensor, a wristband that you wear, and it has a device that makes sure
Mhm.
you're walking at 3 miles per hour, and there is no finish line. And if you go below 3 miles per hour, you get a warning, and
Mhm.
you get if you get more than 3 warnings, you get your ticket. And you can if you have 3 warnings, you can get that erased if you go, what is it, 3 hours without
An
a warning?
hour. Each
An
hour
hour.
gets erased a warning. Yeah.
That's right. So yeah, every hour that you go without a warning, you can erase a warning.
Yeah.
So you can, potentially over the course of the long walk get like 20, 30, 40 warnings as long
Yeah.
as you're erasing them by walking another hour for 3 minutes. And
Yeah.
those are kind of just like the rules of the movie. Other rules are like you can't walk off the road. If you walk
Yeah.
off the road, which, and this brings up all kinds of complications like what do you do when you need to go to the bathroom?
Yeah.
What do you do to eat? What do you do to sleep? All of these things. And it's just like there are no breaks. You have to
Yeah.
keep walking at 3 miles per hour. Uh, and very early on, we have a scene like once the walk starts,
Yeah.
and we have a scene where one of the guys, I think it's the guy who's like really fit, his shoelace is untied, and he stops and he's trying to tie his shoelace, and he's getting warnings. And it's kind of like the first moment, like we in the audience have not been told what getting your ticket is yet,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
as he's getting warnings, all the guys are turning around and screaming at him like, just who cares
Yeah.
about your,
Yeah.
like, tie it later,
Yeah.
and like get up. And he's got his third warning, he gets his third warning, and a soldier walks up and points a gun at his head. And
Mhm.
that's when, if you haven't seen the trailer or haven't read the book, that's the first moment you realize, oh, getting your ticket means
Yeah.
they kill you.
Yeah.
Um, and you also just tell from the performance of the other guys that, and you in the audience immediately feel it like, dude, it's not that important that your shoe's untied. And also,
Yeah.
we just started. How did your shoe come untied? Like,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
um, but they filmed this movie in sequence
Yes. They did.
because they wanted the actors to kind of wear down physically over the course of the shoot. And if you think about it, it's like most of the scenes in this movie, for a movie that's just a bunch of guys on a road walking and
Yeah.
talking, you would think that they would sort of inject it with a lot of flashbacks to their various lives before the long
Right.
walk.
Right.
They only do that like once or twice in the entire movie,
Yeah.
and the rest of the film is just them
Yeah.
on this road. And which means that when they were shooting this, they were doing, full days, a
Mhm.
full
Yeah.
a 12-hour work day,
Yeah.
and most of the setups were the actors walking and
Yeah.
walking quite briskly, and like long takes of them doing dialogue while walking. So that means that like they're walking, probably 8 hours out of a 12-hour day.
Oh, yeah.
And after doing that for whatever, it's probably a 2 to 3 week long shoot. Uh, Even though they're not walking as much as their characters are walking, they're definitely showing up to work like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
another day of,
Yeah. I thought it was pretty brilliant that they decided to do this because, I mean, it turned out really well. But yeah, in one of the behind the scenes things that I watched, the one of the actors was like, "Yes, we had to walk a lot." He's like, "But you know who else had to walk a lot? All the crew."
Oh,
And he was like, every time we had to walk back. So the crew was walking back. So the makeup people, the gaffers, the cinematographer, everybody is walking. So he's like, it was nice. He was giving a shout out to the crew because they all had to walk that much. Like,
well, and I mean, when I was doing the Horizon films,
yeah,
my storyline was a wagon train, and so we were
yeah,
like a bunch of prospecting pioneers moving across the plains,
hmm,
and we had several days where all we were shooting that day is like masters and inserts of the wagon train moving across like
yeah,
a giant field, and it was just a day. It would be a full day where, and like my character, like my job is to wrangle cattle and stuff, and so
yeah,
I would just spend the entire day on a horse wrangling cattle. And it would be all day long of just like going down a field, and just like moving with these cattle and keeping them in line and keeping them with the wagon train. And then we call
yeah,
cut after like a 3 or 4 minute long take. And we
yeah,
turn around and we move the entire wagon train back to the beginning point and we do it again. And
yeah,
it's like, and that many people, we'd have like 250 people,
yeah,
and 100 head of cattle and oxen and donkeys that are pulling
yeah,
these wagons and stuff, and we've got to turn them all around, get them, and it's like
yeah.
it's
It's
a
insane.
big, you can spend an entire day just being like, we're just moving across this field all day
Yeah,
long.
yeah,
And yeah, and it's a lot of, though I would end those days and I'd be like, I'm not an actor today. I'm literally just a cowboy,
yeah,
just
yeah,
wrangling cattle.
yeah. It really is. I mean, with Horizon and with this movie, it really shows the professionalism of filmmaking. And like, I mean, that's a lot that goes into it. And all the cows and everything that you had in yours, they all had to have an animal wrangler for
Mhm.
them. So if you have different oxen, you got to have different. Anyway, it's a huge production. And even though this was a simple film, there was a ton of people that worked on it. That
Oh, the fact that they've gotta have, like, a moving video village that's always
yes,
behind the camera setup team, and that
yeah,
they've gotta, everybody's gotta be there so that when they stop and reset, makeup people have to be they can't be, like, waiting somewhere because this film, like, the usually what the camera is seeing is very wide, and
yeah,
so we're seeing, like, the sides of the road and everything, which means, like, everyone that in the crew that's moving along with the camera, they've got to be moving all of their stuff. So if they've got chairs for the actors, if
yep,
they've got actor holding, they've got to be moving that with the team because they can't hide it in the background because a lot of
yeah.
times we're seeing everything. So,
Yeah, I didn't find this out, but I would love to know. I wonder if they just had like, trailers and everything that were driving with them so they could, I don't know. This is a very interesting production, but
yeah,
everybody was walking and
yeah,
yeah. But I mean back to the movie that
yeah.
pretty quickly the kid who says he's 18, uh
Jojo Rabbit.
yeah, Jojo Rabbit kid, he gets a cramp and he starts cramping pretty bad.
And this is probably like what, mile 2 or 3? Like it's
Yeah,
not
it's
that
not
long
that
into the,
long.
yeah. Yeah, and he gets a cramp and he's freaking out. He's like really scared about his cramp.
Yeah.
And all the other boys are like, "It's okay. Just like if you keep walking, it'll go away. Like just
Yeah,
like
yeah.
push through the pain, you know." But
Yeah, but he ultimately doesn't, and they come up. He gets his final warning, and then, I mean, this was he gets his ticket, and he gets his ticket very graphically,
he's
and
screaming, "It's not fair. It's
yeah,
not fair." And this is like when, the audience, like the movie really tells you like, yeah, we're doing it like that. Because when that first sort of like pointing the gun at the kid who's trying to tie his shoe happens,
mhm,
you're like, how much are they going to like really lean into the violence of this
yeah,
concept?
yeah,
And then in this first kill, this kid who's the youngest kid, the most helpless kid who
yeah,
just he can't walk because his leg is tightening up and he just can't move, and he's just screaming and crying and saying it's not fair, it's not fair, and they just blow half of his face off, like they
yeah,
just
yeah,
it and then the title card hits and it's like
yeah,
that's when it's like, okay, that's what we're watching,
yeah,
that's what the stakes are.
yep.
um and
Which
yeah, yeah.
is, yeah. I mean, when the title card comes up, I mean, I felt like, well, that's the first act, which was very like, whoa, like it really set everything up right there. And it was really graphic, but it really set the tone. So I don't know.
Yeah, and then it's interesting the way that the movie plays with like, okay, we've got 50 people to get rid of by the end
Yeah.
of this film. Are they all just going to be people who get a cramp or people who like roll their ankle, you know? But
Yeah.
there's all these different ways throughout the film that people like one guy, it like they're, I mean, it's again, this movie is like, it doesn't shy away from the struggles of what the long walk really entails because there's
Yeah.
one guy who's kind of friends with our main kind of crew of guys who's trying to go to the bathroom and he's
Yeah.
just pooping while he's walking,
Yeah.
but it's slowing him down and he's getting warnings because he keeps stopping and crouching to
Yeah.
like finish pooping and they're like just poop and they're all just like just go in your pants like
Yeah.
you know, but he's like I can't, you know, and every time someone's doing something like this you're just going like dude just get up, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, like you
Yeah.
don't you can't, you know, but it shows the brutality of like what they're being put through. And
Yeah.
I can't remember if that kid gets his ticket or if he narrowly
Well,
escapes it, the first one.
the first one, he has like diarrhea, like he's
Right,
sick, and
right.
he cannot stop going, and
He
it
gets his
ultimately
ticket,
gets his
right?
ticket. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then one of the other characters, he has to do that. And it's basically at the last second, he pulls up his pants and he goes, and they're like, dude, why couldn't you just like, and then they're like, you got to go away because you stink, which, but yeah, it's,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
gross. And they get into all those details, which I thought it was good that they did that because if you didn't show any of that, like, how do they go to the bathroom? How do they, that becomes a very interesting and even a point of tension within the movie. So
Yeah, and it is interesting to see because you're also thinking like, well, how much are they each allowed to bring in their backpack, and
yeah,
like how much food could a person carry, or how much water? And it is nice to see like some of the rules of the walk are like you are allowed to have as much water as you want. You have a
yeah,
canteen, and when your canteen is empty, you just call, I need a new
yeah,
canteen,
yeah,
and the jeeps that sort of ride alongside them will refill your canteen.
yeah,
I think you get a daily ration of food, and the
yeah,
food is like it comes in these like tubes. It's just like protein paste that
yeah,
comes in these tubes. And but basically it's like if you aren't smart about your daily ration, then that's on you.
yeah,
Um
yeah.
there's not unlimited food that you can have, but so you
No,
got to kind of be smart about when you choose to eat your food and you know.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, one thing that the movie does is it always kind of sets up new sequences by showing us what mile marker we're on,
yeah,
and you can tell that these guys are feeling it after like mile like 7 8 or like after like mile 10 people are
yeah,
like really and it's like yeah, you like walking 10 miles is
yeah,
no joke.
yeah,
And but then like by mile like 20 25 people are like getting delirious and you know and starting to be like oh my gosh
yeah,
my whole body is you know. And I don't know, like I kept thinking about when I used to work as a server and
mm,
I would always check my steps at the end of a shift you know,
yeah,
because when you're a server you're just on your feet running around a restaurant all night
right,
long and you're just and so it's like even like in an 8-hour shift of just running around a restaurant I would get
yeah.
done some nights and be like oh I walked 12 miles tonight, you
Oh
know. And
man,
I'd be like okay yeah that's why my legs would be like so sore at the end of the day.
yeah,
And it's
yeah.
like yeah 25 miles is crazy, you
Oh
know,
yeah.
like
Well, yeah, and it seems like after, I mean, because the first night is really hard for them,
mhm.
and because they're falling asleep while they're walking, and like things are hard. But I imagined after, like you talked about it, walking 20 miles is really hard for anybody. But then I think they just kind of get used to it, and they just keep walking. But I did think that because I think the first night where they have to walk up the hill?
I can't remember if it's the first night or the second night, but that's a night where a lot of people get their ticket, and it's a
Yeah,
clever device for the movie to just and I think it's up the hill in the rain too.
it is.
And
Yeah,
so it starts to rain on them and they hit an incline and it's like a long incline and you know the major basically just says like a lot of you guys aren't going to make it up this hill
yeah,
because
yeah,
it's like you're already so and this is after they've been walking 30 to 40 miles already
yeah,
and now
yeah,
they have to walk like a full mile up this incline. I mean, this sequence is like the hell of war where like
yeah.
these guys are just they're helping each other like make it up this hill and
Well,
guys are just dropping right and left, you know.
yeah, and I mean the nice part about this, this was the part that I realized that David Johnson's character was for real, because he gets in an argument with Ray, and Ray's like, well, whatever, like you just want one less person to,
Mhm.
to have to fight against, and then he gets his third warning. Ray gets his third warning, and he is walking up the hill with a gun pointed at the back of his head the
Right.
entire time, which was like, I was like, oh my gosh, like this is, and he's almost at the top of the hill, and then David Johnson comes up and puts his arm around him and is like, I got you. Like, just keep going. Let's keep going. Let's help each other. And I thought that was such a great way to show, like, okay, David Johnson is not trying to he's not trying to fake anyone out. Like he is, because he's been the one who's like, he's kind of happy and he's like, we got to stick together, and like other people are questioning his, intentions. But that's when you really find out that he is not doing anything. Like he really is a nice person trying to help all
Yeah.
these people out. And I actually wanted to ask you about, because right before this, they're talking about, oh, do you have a girlfriend and all that. And like, I got the feeling, and I've seen this a little bit online. I got the feeling that David Johnson's character might be gay.
Oh, I
Did
got that
you?
feeling.
Okay, you got that too. And
Yeah,
I,
I got
because
that feeling.
he kind of gives Ray a look, and I just thought it was really interesting that they decided, and they never say it, which I was glad. They
Yeah.
kind of just leave it at that. And I thought it was a very interesting aspect. But even I also felt like he could have been gay, but this relationship that Ray and David Johnson's character has is definitely a platonic love, like a platonic
Yeah.
brotherly love between these two characters. I thought it was just so well done. That part of the movie was so well done. And I just kind of loved David Johnson's character after that because of how authentic
Yeah.
he seemed. But anyway, I
Yeah.
just thought that was a very interesting part of the movie. I'm glad to see that you thought that
I do.
too.
Yeah, that's, but the movie never says it, but I
No.
picked up on that. And who knows if that's
Yeah.
correct or not. But he's also got like a big scar on his face, and at some point
Yes.
they're all kind of telling stories about their lives things, and
Yeah.
kind of sharing secrets. And somebody asks him like, "All right, why don't you tell us about the scar on your face?" And he doesn't want to talk. And it's like the one thing that he's not really, because he's a very like
Yeah.
optimistic guy. He's a
Yeah.
very positive guy, but it's the one thing that he's like, let's talk about something else.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's interesting the way that these guys decide, even in this incredibly bleak, incredibly dire situation, we might as well try to make the most of it by like
Yeah.
spending our last moments alive, forming friendships, because like why not? If we're all going to
Yeah.
die here anyway, we might as well like
Yeah.
try to try to have a good time with each other, try to hang, make some memories,
Yeah.
have some moments that
Yeah.
matter, help each other as much as we can. And that's one of the things that makes the movie work, makes the movie so
Yes.
emotional, is
Yeah.
every time someone gets their ticket, most of these guys really feel it. It's not
They
like a
do.
thing.
Yeah.
It's not like this like cynical thing where they're like excited that like that's one less competitor. It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
they're like at least our main characters, and it seems like most of the guys are genuinely affected every time someone drops out. It's like,
Yeah.
no, like Cooper Hoffman at one point is just like, like this is
Mhm.
so messed up,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and they do things where like they'll scream and they'll stop and they'll be like mad and they have to stop, grab each other and be like, don't stop, don't stop. Like we
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
get, we got to keep moving. um, but I found that to be really kind
Yeah.
of emotionally compelling too, that
Yeah.
like that they're not even really like, for the most part, they're not even really interested in competing against each other.
Yeah.
And that's where like this Berkovich thing is really interesting, because a lot of these guys are trying to help each other. They're trying to keep each other alive. They're trying to
Yeah.
keep each other. It's almost like us staying alive. It's like rather than us versus each other, it's us versus these guys with the
Yeah.
guns.
Yeah.
It's us versus the major. It's us versus the military. It's us versus this
Yeah.
system that forces us to do this.
Yeah.
And when Berkovich does this thing that makes it seem like he's coaxing this kid into
Mhm.
getting his ticket punched, because Berkovich keeps, coaxing this kid into, like, he coaxes him into stopping and turning around and walking backwards and
Yeah.
getting 3 warnings and getting shot. And then everyone's like, that's on you, man. You
Yeah.
killed that kid.
Yeah.
Like you
Yeah.
killed that kid. And he immediately is like, don't say that. Don't,
Yeah. Yeah.
no, I didn't. Don't say that. And again, I do think this is a really interesting thing for the movie to play with, but it's
Yeah.
also like, I just think that the screenplay could I think the screenplay could do maybe a better job of
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, fleshing. I think they could have treated the character differently because, as we said, like he's treated as the antagonist who's trying to use schemes to get people out. And
Yeah,
I
because
think
I just didn't like him at that point.
yeah, I
You
didn't
know?
like him either. And I think, if it was more of a mistake, if it was something that like he just like if he was a person who doesn't have a filter, who says too much to someone because he's goading this kid.
Mhm.
He is trying to get him upset, which makes it seem like, oh, well, he meant to do that. He'd be
Right.
fine. But if it was something that like, oh, he doesn't have a filter and like he's saying things that are inappropriate, but he doesn't realize they're inappropriate, I think that might have been better to in the end let us have a little bit more sympathy for him.
And it feels like that's where they wanted to land with the
Yeah.
character, that he's
Yeah.
just like, "I didn't mean to." Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
but they don't, it just takes so long to get there, like, and I still am like, I get it, like,
Yeah.
he's so, like, insecure and scared and upset, that and his defense mechanism is just to lash out and be mean.
Yeah.
He's like,
Yeah.
like, "You guys can't say that about me," and then but then he starts threatening the other kids. He's like, "I got plans for you," and
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
makes him seem like a villain.
Yeah.
And it seems very like Stephen King-esque to have
Yeah.
this like sort of disturbed villain character in there. It
Yeah.
seems like a character that would be in like It or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm like, in this movie, I think it would have been more interesting if at some point Bergovich had come to one of the other kids and been like, "I really didn't mean to do that." Like,
Yeah.
and he
Yeah.
does, but he does it right before he dies.
Yeah. He does.
He's like, "I hope you guys know I really didn't mean to do
Yeah.
that." And and by then it's just sort of like, I don't believe him. Like, I don't,
Right. Right.
and then when he does what he does, I'm like, "Oh, I guess maybe he was sincere in his,"
Yeah.
but it's all just so kind of shocking. But
Yeah.
for a while, now, we're into like mile 50, 70, 80. We're like down the
Yeah.
road now. And for a while, Hank is like not doing well. Hank
Yeah.
has his hand in his jacket. And I kept
Yeah.
thinking, like, is Hank like holding on to like a, I didn't know what his
Yeah.
hand is in his jacket. And I was like, because Hank's been talking about how like he can't feel parts of it. Like he can't feel his
Yeah.
legs and stuff. He's
Yeah.
like, my legs are numb. I can't feel my legs. And his friends keep grabbing him and holding him up and just going like, just keep walking and just
Mhm.
you're like, you'll get your feeling back. And then I mean, it literally just looks like his body's just shutting down.
Yeah.
But the way that Hank got his ticket really broke my heart.
Oh,
Like,
it was brutal. Because yeah, he's a funny character,
mhm,
and like his character is not intentionally funny,
right.
but he plays it really funny, and like you really grow to like this character who's kind of like mean but ultimately nice, and like it was extremely heartbreaking to see this character have to go through this
Mhm.
because he's always had a plan, and he's like, oh, I know exactly what I'm doing, and all this, and then he just can't. He tries to walk back, I think, right?
Well, what we find out a new rule, which is you're not allowed to charge
Right.
to charge the Jeeps.
Yes.
So, I mean, obviously, throughout the course of this competition, they've definitely had some people who, like, at a certain point of exhaustion or frustration, they try to like rush the Jeep and grab the guns from the
Mhm.
soldiers and maybe turn the guns on the soldiers.
Yeah.
And you're not allowed to do that. And the punishment for doing that, if you do rush the Jeep, it's like, and they tell you, they're like, don't, like stay
Yeah.
back. Like you're not, but the
Mhm.
punishment is they won't shoot you in the head. They'll shoot you in the gut and make you bleed
Yeah.
out slowly. And
Yeah.
they'll be like, because you did that, we're not going to give you a merciful fast death. And so he kind of deliriously runs
Yeah.
at the Jeep, just saying like, I can't do it anymore. And they shoot him in the stomach. But the other kids can't go back and help him either. Like they can't,
No.
one of them I think does go back and is like, why don't you finish him off? Like, come
Yeah.
on, like,
Yeah.
but that person's getting warning. So the other kids are yelling at him going like, you got to leave him.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's heartbreaking because as he's dying in the road, he's yelling after his friend saying, I did it wrong.
Yeah.
I did it all wrong. Like I did,
Yeah.
I messed it up. Like
Yeah. And he's the first one because they call themselves the Three Musketeers, and there's four
yeah.
of them.
Uh-huh.
And he's the first one of the really close knit group that dies. And it
Yeah.
really is it's pretty horrible. And then we find out after that he did have a wife.
Right.
Because he never said that he had a wife, but someone said that he did, and so they all decide that they're gonna donate or do something
They
to
say
help.
whoever wins
Yeah,
send some money to
yeah,
his wife.
Yeah.
and they all agree. And even like the buff guy that like has been kind of
Yeah.
quiet the whole time, he agrees. He's like, fine, I agree. They get
Yeah.
everyone. They're like, hey, everyone hear
Yeah.
this? Like, whoever wins, send money to Hank's
Yeah.
wife. Because a lot of them, they've also talked about this too, that like if you had a girlfriend or whatever, or a boyfriend, it's smart to break up with that person before you
Right.
go on the long walk. Like
Yep.
Cooper Hoffman's character talks about this. He talks about how he's like, I was seeing a girl, but I broke it off because I
Yeah.
won the lottery.
Yeah.
There's also an interesting thing about the lottery that they talk about where they're like, we all enter the lottery, but have you ever met anyone who doesn't enter? Like
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
like the it's presented to us like a choice. It's presented to us like something we volunteer for, but there really isn't an option to not throw your name into the lottery. Like, so
Yeah.
no one really wants to get selected for this lottery because most people know that it's a death sentence. Um,
Yeah, and
yeah.
I thought that was interesting. I also saw another take where it is very much like a lottery where so many people, like in our society today, so many people will buy lottery tickets and knowing that the chances of winning are astronomically low, and we still do it anyway. So it's kind of like people are in desperate times, and Ray even says this. He's like, they've put a gun to our head and they've shown us, backed us into a corner and said that's the only way out, and they point to a hole in the ground, and so we all have to go into it. So I thought that was a very interesting way to talk about. I mean, do they have a choice in the matter? They do, but they're really being forced into this choice. I thought that was
Well,
a
and
very interesting part.
we get more of an insight into the world of the movie too through
Yes.
Ray, because Ray is kind of quiet about what
Yeah.
they're all talking at one point about what their plans are if they win, what they would
Yeah.
do with the money. And also there's this whole thing of like you get
You
one
get
wish, which is
Yeah,
very
one
like
wish.
which is very like whimsical.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
he won't say what his plan is. He's kind of like, I don't want to talk about it. But we
Yeah.
sort of get an insight into his worldview about the world that they live in and how it's informed by his father, who was kind of a rebel. His dad was kind
Yeah.
of a
Yeah.
revolutionary who sort of secretly opposed the major and
Yeah.
this militaristic sort of governmental framework
Yeah. Yeah.
where his dad would had like, uh banned music and
Yeah.
banned books and things like that.
Yeah.
And we get an idea that like the major sort of runs America in this world and
Yeah.
has a very like authoritarian, totalitarian hold.
Totalitarian,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah.
Hold
Yeah.
on. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know if he's the president. They never get into that, but I imagine that he is the authority figure, like you're talking
He
about.
kind of seems like the end all be all
Yeah.
of,
And
yeah.
I did want to ask you this because they talk about the winner. The winner is supposed to get this huge amount of money, like this huge sum of money.
Yeah.
Um, but I thought, well, I don't really think anyone actually wins. I don't think they actually give anyone any money. They ultimately just kill the person who wins. So that because their whole goal is because he's like, every time we have this, our GDP goes up, a certain amount or whatever. And
I know I was curious about that, but then I'm like, wouldn't people notice that like
well,
wouldn't the winner have to be like a public figure who
and that's what I thought was interesting too, because everyone's like, well, have you ever met anyone? They don't ever talk about the winners. They just say the
right,
winners get a bunch of money.
right.
And so
They
my
don't even
thought
say how
is,
much.
yeah,
Yeah.
my thought is they don't actually give them anything. They
I
just,
thought about that. I was curious about that. About and the movie doesn't do
yeah,
quite it doesn't really which it doesn't need to, but
no,
it's sort of like it just feels like again this movie has a tone to it that's just like
yeah,
bleak. That just
yeah,
like like when it was over I was like wow that was really depressing.
yeah,
There were
it
just a
was,
lot of really emotional sad moments.
yeah,
Um but yeah, then so we're getting thinner and thinner. We're like to like almost 200 miles that these guys
yeah,
have walked, and
yeah,
they're just so ragged.
yeah,
And it's at one point there's this guy. This one was so brutal. This guy who wanted to write a book, and early on he was walking around
oh,
asking guys their experiences, and
yeah,
then this guy, all of a sudden, we just see this shot where he's got an ankle that is twisted and broken, and he's walking on basically like a stump of a foot
yeah,
that it's
oh,
just like his bone is just dragging
yeah,
on the pavement, and he finally just has to give up because he
yeah,
can't walk on this stump anymore.
yeah,
And
oh,
it's just brutal.
yeah, that is
Yeah.
brutal. That was really sad.
Yeah. But
But
as it's interesting, as the group gets smaller, their camaraderie gets tighter, because it
Oh
starts
yeah.
off as just like the four musketeers, but then
Yeah.
as it becomes like 10 people and then like 8 people and 7 people, those people start to get more like, I think they all just have more respect for each other, of like, okay, it's just
Yeah.
us left, you know?
Yeah.
And there is this kid that started out who was like the most fit, and there's this really interesting ironic twist of fate that's happening to him. He gets really sick, and
Yeah.
he's like very visibly ill
Yeah.
and kind of looks like he's dying. And as they're well, first, before that twist happens, one of the remaining 3 musketeers, after Hank dies, there's a whole sequence where they're basically like holding him up. Ray and Peter
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
holding him up between them, and this scene was so brutal, because he just
Oh
talks to
yeah.
him and he just goes, "All right, guys, I think I'm done." And they're
Yeah.
like, "No, no, no." And he's like, "Guys, like
Yeah.
it's gotta end at some point.
Yeah.
I think I'm done." And then it's so sad. He goes, "Will you guys promise me one thing?" And they go, "What?" He goes, "Don't look. Please don't look.
Yeah.
Don't turn
Oh
around." And it's
yeah.
so brutal that they have to promise him that they just let him go,
Yeah.
and then he just stands there, and just stands there and waits to get his
Yeah.
ticket punched. And
Yeah.
oh man, yeah.
Yeah. A great performance by all, and that one. Yeah, that one's really sad. I mean, they're
Yeah, and
all
his
really
his
sad,
nose
but
has been bleeding for like
yeah.
miles. His nose has
Yeah.
been bleeding for like 50 miles, and he's like he's just like very unwell. And it's,
Yeah.
it's like you see this when you watch people go through marathons, and the way that like the human body shuts down.
Yeah.
And it's like
Yeah.
these kids are walking like hundreds of miles without stopping, and their
Yeah.
body, I mean, they've all gone to the bathroom in their pants several times.
Yeah.
They're all
Yeah.
walking around in like shoes that are falling apart. At some point, Cooper Hoffman's the soles of his shoes just
Oh
come,
yeah.
they're just gone. And so somebody's just like, "Hey, just take them off, man. Just get rid of
Yeah.
them." And so he's just walking in socks, and
Yeah.
and his feet are just bloody, just,
Yep. Yep.
and, and eventually it's like 5 people left. And this
Yeah.
kid who's we talked about Berkovich at one point kills himself when they're
Yeah.
all making the deal to give money to Hank's widow. Berkovich is like, "Hey, can I be a part of that deal? Like, will you
Yeah.
guys let me in on?" Which I thought was kind of like sweet, that he was like, is it okay
Yeah.
if I'm
Yeah.
part of the deal?" And they're like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Okay, thanks." And he's like, "I really didn't mean to kill that kid." And then
Yeah.
he just goes and just kills himself, which
Yeah.
which is, but I liked the way this other kid does it, where well, there's a few different, one person runs off the path, just goes, "I'm just
Yeah.
going to run for it," and just tries to make a
Yeah.
sprint. That person goes, and the other person goes, basically does what Hank did, but more successfully, just goes, "I'm just going to make a last stand." And he
Yeah.
rushes one of the Jeeps and takes a gun and starts
Yeah.
shooting
And he
the
kills
soul.
a few of them. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just sort of like "Hey, I'm going to go out. I'm going to go out swinging." And they do the same thing to him that they did to Hank. They shoot him in the stomach.
Well,
And
he kills himself. So
right. Because
he's a Native American,
but
which
they
is
shoot him in the stomach first,
they
but then he
do.
kind of
Yeah.
looks at him and like defiantly, because he's already stolen a
Yeah.
rifle.
Yep.
He's like, "You don't get to take me out like that."
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
and
and that was
yeah,
pretty brutal too, but I liked that character because yeah, a few of these tertiary characters are really hardened. Like he was kind of a hard one, and then at the end he really comes in and he really gets that camaraderie that you're talking about.
yeah.
And I thought his character was especially his was done especially well because he was pretty hard the whole time, and then at the end he really kind of gives in, and you really like, oh man, like I like that guy now. Like
Well, and it's interesting how, when people die earlier, like this is another reason why I
yeah,
think this is a good metaphor for life, because when people die earlier, it's really like against their will, and it's like really,
yeah,
it's almost always like from some like cruel twist of fate, just
yeah,
like, "Oh, I got a Charlie horse in my leg and it won't go away," and
yeah,
or like, "I wasn't able to pull my pants up fast enough when I was
yeah,
pooping," or
yeah,
and it's
yeah,
like that's usually how we feel about people who die young. Is just like,
yeah,
"Oh man, like too young, like too
yeah,
early in the walk, like
yeah,
too early in the race." But as the race goes on, increasingly people start to sort of take their own fate into their own hands. And
yeah,
you start to see more and more people kind of go out on their own terms, that like
yeah,
when they're ready to be done and they're like, I'm not gonna walk anymore. It just kind of reminded me of like the way that some people can kind of like, you might be dying of an illness
right,
later in life, and you can make the decision, "We're not going to keep fighting this as aggressively. We're
right,
gonna,
right,
we're gonna kind of give me some morphine to make me comfortable, get my family over here,
yeah,
and let's have some nice, let's have a couple
right,
days
right,
where we all, and it's like sort of taking your exit into your own hands, and finding a way to exit the walk with dignity and being like,
Right.
I'm gonna do this with my head held high, and
Mhm.
I'm not gonna let them take my dignity from me.
Yeah.
I walked 150 miles or 200 miles, and
Yeah.
I'm proud of that. And like they start saying that to each other too, like, hey man, you did a really good job.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and it's just like it's so emotional. They're like, I'm so
Yeah.
proud of you. Like you worked really hard.
Yeah.
And
Well, and speaking of the going out on their own terms, I think there's only 3 of them left, which is David Johnson and Cooper, Hoffman, and then this other character, which I guess this is what you wanted to talk about because he reveals he's been sick the whole time.
mhm,
He's a very fit one, and he reveals that he is actually the son of the major, and the major has many,
illegitimate
illegitimate
children.
children, and he is one of them. And he was hoping that he could get he was hoping that the major would invite him in for tea, I think is what he says. And
Like his wish was going to be like, can I please just like be,
yeah,
can I just like have you as a dad? But
yeah,
what I was more interested in what he's saying before this revelation,
right,
because what he says is, I'm the carrot. And they
yeah,
go, what do you mean? And he goes, or I'm the rabbit. He goes, I'm the
yeah,
rabbit. And they go, what do you mean? He goes, well, in like races, I think it's like dog races or horse
yeah,
races,
yeah,
they have them chase a rabbit, but it doesn't matter how hard they run, they can't catch the rabbit. And
yeah,
I thought what he was saying is that like the state always puts in like a ringer
right, right,
into that they like they put someone in who the rest of the people are supposed to be chasing, but there's no way that they can.
yeah,
And that person always wins the
yeah,
long walk, and that person like doesn't need to be, like that it's all just
yeah,
like a sham. And I thought that was a more interesting twist to be
yeah,
like, I was supposed, but he's like, the cruel twist on me was that I wound up getting really sick and I wasn't supposed to get sick. He's like,
yeah,
I'm supposed to be the person that you're all chasing, and it doesn't matter how hard you all push forward, you're not going to catch me. I'm just in better shape than all of you. But the cruel
yeah,
twist to fate is I wound up getting like the flu. And he's
yeah,
like, I've never been sick in my life, and I have the flu
yeah,
on the long walk. But I like that twist more than I'm the major son. I just think I'm the major son doesn't really do anything for me. It's just kind of like, okay, like
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know. I like the
No, I
twist
agree.
more that it's like they're rigging the game, they're rigging the
Yeah,
race. Uh,
yeah.
yeah.
That would have been more interesting, but he
What
isn't. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, what him being the major son does is it just makes the major really really cruel. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah, it
Yeah.
does. Yeah, because he treats him exactly the same. Because he says, "Well, I'm not. I'm going to go out with my head held high, and I'm not gonna get on my knees or anything. I'm going to stand tall or whatever." So he does that, and the major treats him just like any of the other ones. They just kill him immediately.
Yeah, and I do like this that he says to the boys, like, because he's been like competing with them the whole time, and he's kind of been the
Yeah,
holdout, and he's like, you guys are gonna, you guys are gonna, you're gonna make it, and he's like, and I'm gonna go out with my head held high, and he just like
yeah,
stands there and like salutes, and then like stands at attention and
yeah,
just waits, and it's like, yeah, it's very powerful, but
hmm,
we also found out at a certain point in a flashback that Cooper Hoffman's
yeah,
dad was killed by the major.
yeah,
And so Cooper Hoffman does eventually reveal to Pete, he's like, listen, I'm going to tell you what my plan is just because I don't think I'm going to make it. And he's
yeah,
like, and my plan was, my wish was going to be, he's like, I was going to wish for a gun so I could shoot the
yeah,
major. He's like, I was going to
yeah,
kill the major, you know? And Pete's like, I don't think that you would have been able to get away with that. And he's like, well,
yeah,
I'm going to try, he's like, but I don't think I'm going to make it anyway, you know? But there is this scene before the ending where they're walking. They keep
yeah,
calling Ray the hometown boy because they're in his
yeah,
home state,
yep,
and he's the only one whose family is close enough to come and watch him
yeah,
participating. And while they're in like the home stretch, like the last probably 50 to 150 miles of the
yeah,
walk, and he's got no shoes on, his mom shows up to watch him, and his mom played by Judy Greer,
yeah,
and as he's walking past her, Pete's trying to tell him like, hey, you gotta like keep your eyes forward, and like
yeah,
don't like, this is going to be really hard for you, but like just keep moving, just keep moving.
yeah,
And he walks past her, and as she's almost
yeah,
gone, and then he turns around and runs back to her
yeah,
and starts
yeah,
but as he's running toward her, she freaks out because
yeah,
he's not allowed to step off the road, and she's standing on the sidewalk. and she's going like, no, 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 no,
Yeah, yeah,
don't. And he's saying, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I messed up. I shouldn't have done this. I'm
yeah,
so sorry. And she can see that he doesn't have his shoes on. And she can
yeah,
see that, but she's just like screaming, like, please, please, please get
yeah,
back on the road. Please, you know?
yeah,
And once again, he's got a gun pointed at his head, and she's like, and it is like dangerously close to him being murdered in front of his mom.
yeah.
And
And yeah, Judy Greer just really goes for it in this movie, and it was, you can tell how scared she is
mhm.
and how like how terrifying this is for her. And this was a really really well done scene because
This is a scene that made me tear up. Like I
oh yeah,
was,
yeah,
yeah, I definitely
and
was like,
yeah,
yeah,
but they ultimately are the last two. David Johnson and Cooper Hoffman are the last two, and they're just walking. And this part, David Johnson said earlier in the film, when I'm done, I'm just going to sit down and let him take me, and that's just all I'm going to do. And so he sits down and he's like, I'm done, congratulations, man, like you take it, like you need to be the one, like find, because he's always telling, he's been trying to tell Cooper Hoffman, like, don't do this, don't kill the major, like
mhm.
find the good in life and live on how your dad would want you to be, right? Which was such a great message. So he lays down, but then Cooper Hoffman picks him up and says, look, just walk with me for a few more miles, like just be my brother right now, and let's just walk a few more miles. So David Johnson says, okay, okay, and like he lifts him up and he kind of pats him on the back, and
They
David
start
Johnson,
walking, but
yeah,
Cooper
but
Hoffman
Cooper
stops.
Hoffman stops, and David Johnson doesn't realize, and then he gets his ticket punched, and he gets
Yeah,
shot in the gut first, and then the major comes over and kills Cooper Hoffman.
yeah,
And this is the part that made me cry, like, because David Johnson is just crying so hard, like, he's watching his, his friend who he's just spent the last 3 or 4 days, 5 whatever days is, together going through all this horrible stuff. And so the major kills Cooper Hoffman, and then we're trying to figure out what's going to happen. And David Johnson says, he's major comes up and says, all right, what's your wish? And he says, I want a gun. He says, we'll get you one. He says, no, I want that gun from the walk. So they give him the gun, and you're thinking, what the heck I was just like, is he really going to do this? Because he just spent the whole movie telling Cooper Hoffman not to do this.
well, yeah, and we also found out that earlier that he
Yeah.
finally revealed the story of how he got his scar, and we kind of
Right.
get an insight into his worldview, which is like he's lived a whole life of just like being passed around from home to home,
Yeah.
intense abuse from one of his uncles that he lived with that scarred his face and cut his face up, and that he's just learned to view life as a series of like really beautiful moments when he can. And so
Yeah.
even on this walk, he's always pointing out, like, look at the sunset, look at like,
Yeah.
and this is some of that stuff that like I appreciate that it's in this movie. I think it's
Yeah.
important because again, if this is a metaphor for life,
Right.
it's like even though life is kind of brutal and hard and confusing and unforgiving, you've got to try to find the moments that make it worth it.
Yeah.
And I felt like the way that JT Molnar sort of wrote this into the screenplay was a little just kind of basic and heavy-handed. It was just sort of like, because like then Cooper
Yeah.
Hoffman says back to him, like, you know what? There are good moments, and like
Yeah.
the fact that you and I met and were friends, that's worth it. And it's just
Yeah.
it's a little like close to sappy, but but it still works for me.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
something that I feel like it could have been handled a little, maybe more like, I don't know. I keep coming back to the word like poetic or sophisticated or something, but
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
works well enough. But yeah, so
Yeah.
we do have this we're like, right, is he going to now, in honor of his dead friend, shoot uh
Yeah.
Mark Hamill? And he does.
He does.
Yeah.
He points it at him, and Mark Hamill's like, "Put your guns down. Like, you're not going to do this, kid. Like, you've got a whole bunch of money waiting for you." And they have this exchange, but then ultimately he shoots him. He shoots Mark Hamill. You see him fall, and then he just drops the gun and he walks into the distance. There's nobody around because at this last mile, there's a ton of people there. There's just a bunch of people that are, cheering him on or whatever, and all those people are gone. And David Johnson just keeps walking,
Yeah.
and then that's the end of the movie. And I mean, it is kind of suggesting that, I mean, he did kill
Do you feel
the
like he's dead? Do you feel
I
like
do
David?
feel like he got shot right after that,
Yeah, and
or
then
he
he
never got the chance to shoot him, and that's
yeah.
just like his dream of whatever.
It
But I
does
did
feel like that, right? But it's like also
Yeah.
it feels like this movie could be suggesting that that's literally what happened. And
Yeah.
in that case, I'm going like, well, I have questions. Like I'm
Yeah.
confused.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and it is really interesting that, because he's always been the light. David Johnson has always been the light, the positive one. And then in this last moment, he switches and everything. He's kind of he's on the opposite side, you know, of the screen now. That's kind of saying that he has switched sides. He's kind of in the dark now, right? And he chooses to go into the dark, which is a very grim ending to this movie, right? Like he
That's
is,
what I mean is there's something about the ending that's just like not quite fully
yeah,
satisfying.
yeah.
It feels like as the movie's going along, there's just like more to this world and the society than what we
Yeah.
know, and there's more to the walk than what we know, and there's more, like this idea of like, are they actually giving money to the person who wins,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
this idea of like them putting their thumb on the scale by putting a rabbit in the race
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
like these different that it's that I'm like, I kind of want an ending that has a little bit more of like a strong revelation, but the ending in some ways felt as exhausted as the characters. Like the ending just
Yeah.
kind of felt
Yeah.
like, I don't know, I'm tired. Who cares? The
Yeah.
end.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
just sort of felt like instead of like delivering something that really hits with like a big heavy punch, it just was like, that's the end, whatever. He shoots the major and he walks away.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
and then it's like, and you can think of it, whatever. It just kind of felt like the movie itself got kind of
Yeah.
like tired, you know?
Mhm.
And I don't know. Yeah.
No, I agree, and it's kind of like it's a very bleak ending, which it just makes you feel like, oh man, there's like no hope in this world, right? And it's consistent with the movie, but I found myself, I didn't necessarily want a happy ending. And I don't know if this would be better, but I almost would have liked to have seen David Johnson not shoot the general, but like say something to him that basically means like, I'm going to stand up to you and I'm going to try and take this system down. Something, and I mean that's a horrible way for me to, if he would have
Or if
just
he had like vocalized a wish that is like
yes.
doable, but
Yeah.
it somehow because earlier David Johnson had said that his wish was going to be to change the rules,
Yes.
to
To
make it
allow
so that
two
they're
winners.
to allow two winners, and they were like, you can't make a wish that changes the rules, and he's like, well, I'm going to try, and it's like
Yeah.
I wondered if the screenplay could have paid that off in a better way, where it's like instead of wishing for two winners, maybe he wishes for something that's like, I'm not changing the rules of the society, but I'm opening up I'm 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 going to inspire anybody
Yeah.
listening with,
Yes.
and I don't know what that wish is, but it's like I just wanted something that gives the movie a little bit more of like especially with a movie that's so bleak and so heavy, some
Yeah.
kind of hope, because what we get
Yeah.
is a feeling of like, I don't think that actually happened. I think he probably just got killed when he pointed that gun at the major. Right? And
Yeah.
if he did shoot the major, I think they shot him right after. And if they didn't, I don't know how.
Yeah.
Does
Yeah.
that mean he's the new major now? Is this the Santa Claus rules where if you kill the major,
Yeah.
you're the major?
You're the major now.
And yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
But
I agree. It was like, "Oh, man, is this the best ending for this movie?" But
yeah,
it's not bad. It's
yeah.
definitely not it's a very interesting take. It is different from the book. In the book, Ray does win, and David Johnson's character dies. He's actually in third place, and the really buff kid just like dies from exhaustion, and
Mhm.
then Ray doesn't even realize he just keeps walking. So I don't know. It's an interesting ending. I think they did a great job in this movie overall, but I do wonder. I would have kind of liked to have seen a little bit of hope or a little bit of adversity, being an adversary to the major.
But maybe, if the movie is a metaphor for life, maybe the ultimate message is like
Yeah.
nobody actually
Yeah. Yeah.
get,
Yeah.
like as the walk goes on, as it gets longer and longer, and as your body gets worn
Yeah.
down,
Yeah.
you have fewer and fewer friends and fewer allies, and nobody
Well,
actually does get to
yeah.
escape it, you
And
know?
which I totally agree. And if it's a metaphor for war, I mean, the war is over, but you come back, you're not the
Mhm.
same person. I mean, you've
Yeah.
lost all your friends. you come back just really dark, depressing, in a dark, depressing way. Not that you can't get out of it, but that's, yeah, so it's a good movie. Really good.
Let's get into scores.
Yeah.
So we score movies out of 10 on a scale of 10, 10 being the best, and we give a technical rating for the craft of the film, just how well was it technically constructed. We give a score for the ending, how well did they stick the landing. We just talked a good deal about the ending. We give a score for rewatchability. We give a score for cultural significance and impact, and we give a score for our subjective feeling about the movie. So Kramer, what is your technical rating for The Long Walk?
My technical rating is a 7.5. I think they did a great job on this. It was simple. It was done really, really well. Cinematography was good. The directing was good. The acting was really good. Everybody did a really, really good job. I think some of the things that we talked about with the script, maybe a little bit on the nose, sometimes just a little bit. And that ending as well just makes me think, okay, is this, it just leaves me wanting a little bit more. So I kind of docked it points for that.
Yeah, I gave it an 8 technically because I think, just for what they were trying to do, it's pretty well
Yeah.
executed. And like I said,
Yep.
the moments that they need me to feel a certain way, I was feeling it.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
mean, the movie is bleak, it's heavy, but I don't think it shies away from that. It lets you know what it is early on, and it kind of keeps you in that space. But it manages to do a lot with a really simple concept, which I found pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And I dock at the points for some of the things in the screenplay that I think were set up and not paid off in a way that I think was maybe the best usage of
Yeah.
those setups. And I don't know who's to blame for that, if it's Stephen King or JT Molnar or a combination of both.
Yeah.
But and then that ending, I just am not sure about, which is the next score. So what is your score for the ending?
The ending I gave a 7. I think it does it like they decided to go in a certain direction and they went for it, which I think is very, very admirable. Like I think it was earned, the ending that they got. So I don't feel like I can give it less than that, but I also don't feel I can give it more than that because I do kind of feel a little bit empty with it. So
Yeah, I gave the ending a 6.5 because I just felt like like
yeah.
that's the thing that's keeping me from really, really loving this movie, is just the
Yeah.
fact that it makes it hard for me to recommend the movie really highly to people, because I'm just like, well, there's not really like, I just, if I were to
Yeah.
recommend it, I'd go, I think it's very well done and I think it's very effective, but it is just, it's bleak and there's
It
not
is.
really much to
Yeah.
take away from the ending of it. It's kind of like, I think about another Stephen King adaptation, The Shawshank Redemption, and what a bleak film that is, and just what a terrible kind of saga through Andy Dufresne's life they take you on. And in the original edit of that film, it was
Yep.
left more ambiguous, where it wasn't shown that Morgan Freeman ever makes it down to Zihuatanejo to see his friend. He has the speech about, like, I hope I see my friend, I
Yeah.
hope, and then the movie just ended. But they decided they did this
Yep.
reshoot where they have him see Tim Robbins on that beach. And to me, that's the thing that makes that movie one of, like, an all-time classic,
Oh yeah.
is just the fact that they land it so satisfying in a place
Yep.
where, like, a big theme of that movie, similar to The Long Walk, is one character trying to convince another character that hope is not a bad thing
Yeah.
to have.
Yep.
As bad as Andy's life is, he's always trying to convince Red that that it's okay to have hope. And that,
Yeah.
and Red's like, not in here, man. You got to grow up. Like, you got to
Yeah.
understand that, like, this is your life. Shawshank is your life, and you need to ditch hope as
Mhm.
quickly as possible. And at the end of the movie, it's like, after everything that they go through, here they both are on a beach in Mexico, and they're about to start a whole new life. And it's like that theme of, like, even through the worst imaginable circumstances, hope is a valuable thing to hang on to.
Yeah.
And this movie doesn't give you that. This movie just sort of is like, that's it. That's the walk. And it's like,
Yeah.
ugh. And
Yeah.
so I think it could be a really great film if they found an ending that just hits a little harder somehow.
Yeah.
Rewatchability.
Rewatchability, I gave a 6.5 because it is done really well, but it's brutal. It's bleak. It's as we have talked about. So it is going to be it's I mean an hour and 45 minutes or something. So it's not too long, but yeah, it would be a harder one to watch, but I would definitely watch it again.
I could see myself coming back to this. I could see
Yeah.
I probably in my life, will I watch it 2 more times? Who knows? Maybe 1 more time, maybe
Yeah.
2 more times max. I gave
Right.
it a 6 because it is well done, and if someone had never seen it before and was curious about it, I would definitely sit and watch it with them.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know, it's kinda one of those like The Shawshank Redemption, again, is one of the most rewatchable movies of all time,
Yeah.
and this is a movie that feels it's like in that similar palette of Stephen King
Right. Right.
stories, and it just doesn't quite hit as hard for
Yeah.
me. Some of those moments do hit hard, and that's why I would probably rewatch it, is for some of those emotional moments in the middle of the film.
Yeah.
How about cultural impact and significance?
Cultural impact, I gave a 7. It's doing well, and I think this will have an impact. I don't know how big, but I think and it's getting really good reviews from critics and audiences. So I think it will kind of prove to be a pretty influential movie down the line.
I had this at a 5. I'm gonna bump it up to a 6 because I do think that I was like, is this gonna like have the staying power of like Stand By Me or other
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
like Stephen King classics? And I'm like, it could. It could be a movie that further down the line people are gonna go like, that movie didn't quite get the flowers it deserved at the
Yeah.
time, but there's a lot there to really appreciate. And I could see it
Yeah.
getting a little bit of a cult status down the line. How about your subjective score?
My subjective score is an 8. I think just the performances and the fact that it had affected me emotionally so much, like at the ending, I was really sad, and it was really every time somebody did get their ticket, it was done very well, and it did affect me. So I felt like, and this is better than a lot of the movies that, I mean, it could have just been a standard movie that they just came out with, but I think it was elevated above that. So
I agree. I gave it a 7.5. I just, for the most part, I really enjoyed the process of watching the film. Bleak and heavy
yeah.
as it was, I was impressed with what they were able to do with such a simple concept, and
Mhm.
how they were able to make kind of the same event happening over and over again keep feeling new and heavy and
Yeah.
hard in a different
Yeah.
way. And I do like a simple metaphor sometimes. I like
Yeah.
something that just
Yeah.
sort of simple and elegant. And um, as heavy as it was, I mostly enjoyed watching it. So
Yeah.
um, go see this in theaters if you haven't
Yeah.
already. And just be prepared that it's it doesn't shy away from the violence and that it's heavy and
No.
bleak. But let
Yeah.
us know if you've already seen it, what you thought in the comments. Like, share, comment, subscribe, all of that good stuff. And we're talking about Paul Thomas Anderson's One Battle After Another next. So check that one out if you want to watch along with the show.
Which actually we might post this after we post that, but
That's true. Yeah, maybe
well,
I got it in the wrong
this is
order, but
this is
yeah,
that's all right. This is a makeup, and
yeah.
yeah, we'll get back on track. But glad we were able to talk about this. I really wanted to talk about this one. So
Yeah, good point that this might happen. Who knows? Who knows what order we're releasing these in?
yeah.
All right, everybody. Either way, we'll see you on the next one.
See you on the next one.